Survival horror. The term was first used to describe the original Resident Evil when it shambled its way onto store shelves in 1996. The game was kind of a big deal. RE1 set off a boom that eventually saw survival horror evolve into its very own genre. Franchises like Silent Hill, Fatal Frame, and more followed in RE's blood-soaked footsteps, helping to catapult survival horror's popularity into its golden age. It seemed like it would never end, until it kinda did. Resident Evil started to suck, Konami stopped caring about Silent Hill, and these days, aside from Resident Evil, AAA survival horror games aren't all that common anymore. But thankfully, some smaller teams and studios have taken up the genre's mantle for themselves, creating new takes on the classic formula, to varying results. Hey, it's Travis, and welcome to Game Rats. Lately, I've been having this really crazy itch to play survival horror games, so I picked up a few that came out within the last year or two. So today, we're going to be taking a look at some newer games that use that classic Resident Evil formula, starting with Tormented Souls on the PS5. I went in completely oblivious of this game's existence, and to be honest, it kinda blew me away. Imagine a world where Resident Evil had stuck to its classic formula, and Tormented Souls could very well have been some lost entry in the series. You play as Carolyn Walker, maybe an homage to Resident Evil 2's lost protagonist Elsa Walker? One day, you receive an anonymous letter from a strange hospital. The letter contains a photo of twin girls who appear to need your help. Caroline wastes no time going to the hospital, and within minutes of arriving, she is knocked unconscious. The game spares you any further exposition as you wake up butt naked in a tub with a strange tube running down your throat and a missing eye. Just like that, you're then off to unravel the mystery of the twins and explore the hospital. If you're a fan of the original Resident Evil 1 through Resident Evil 3, you'll feel right at home here. The game takes plenty of cues from the Biohazard series, and it's not trying to hide that fact. From tank controls to puzzle solving, right down to the oh-so-familiar sounding safe room music, everything but the cumbersome inventory management has made the jump from Resident Evil into Tormented Souls. The hospital is a frightening joy to explore. Imagine RE1's Spencer Mansion, RE2's police department, and some of Silent Hill's otherworldly hellscapes all had a demented baby together. The hospital lays the groundwork for some genuinely creepy moments, supported by a slightly generic yet still enjoyable story that is revealed to you through various journal entries and cutscenes. As you explore, you'll encounter a myriad of deformed enemies that you'll need to blast your way through. Combat is exactly what you would expect. Hold in L2 to aim and R2 to shoot. The twist is you cannot enter combat in darkness. You'll have to swap between your lighter in dark areas and your weapon in light ones, at least until you find the flashlight. Tormented Souls is a very puzzle-heavy survival horror game. This might not be everyone's cup of tea. This isn't just like some pushing some boxes around kind of stuff. No, there are some real head-scratchers in here, and there are a lot of them. As much as I enjoyed this game, there are a few things that are not so great. The game kinda overdoes it with backtracking. It's a staple of the genre, but towards the end, it really has you running all over the place. And not to get too nitpicky, but there isn't a button to bring up your map. You have to navigate through your entire inventory every time you want to pull it up, which can be pretty tedious until you learn the lay of the land. If you're a fan of old school survival horror, then this game is absolutely for you. You'll love it. Go ahead and buy it now. I can't imagine that you'll regret it. With that said, if those old school sensibilities aren't your thing, this one isn't going to do much of anything to change that. There's really not much of a middle ground here. But for me, Tormented Souls is exactly the type of experience I was looking for. Originally released as a Wii U exclusive back in 2014, Fatal Frame Maiden of Black Water was recently ported over to systems that, people actually own. Black Water's story sees you take control of 3 different protagonists. Their stories are all intertwined around the horrific Mount Hakami, a fictional place where people are known to go to commit suicide, not unlike Japan's very real suicide forest. Acting is basically a paranormal investigator. Your job is to track down missing spirits, armed only with your trusty camera obscura and a bikini, because why not? Maiden of Black Water starts off strong, with its creepy ambience, moody lighting, and good-looking character models. But the more you play, the more its flaws begin to become glaringly apparent. To start with the positive, like I mentioned before, the game looks the part. Its ghostly locales are initially fun to explore. It's just unfortunate that the game relies on revisiting these same locations in subsequent chapters, making them feel stale rather quickly. There are plenty of non-aggressive ghosts lurking around every corner, which the game encourages you to try to snap a picture of before they make their way back to the Beyond realm. If you're fast enough, this rewards you with points, and it does help to keep you engaged with the world. It also has a wetness meter. I don't know what else to call it. Anyway, rain and water should be avoided, because the wetter your character is, the more susceptible to ghostly attacks they become. Now the bikini does make more sense. As for the game's issues, they are aplenty. First off, this isn't the Fatal Frame you knew and loved on the PS2, because the fixed camera angles of the series past have been removed in favor of a Resident Evil 4 style over-the-shoulder camera, and let me tell you, these controls are rough. As soon as you nudge the joystick forward to move, it feels slippery and sluggish. When you're not walking around at the pace of a snail, you can opt to utilize the run button. However, it has this weird input delay to get going, and you never quite feel like you have good control of your character. It's kinda like jogging around in Shenmue, if Ryo had spinal problems. Yeah, I'll take traditional tank controls over this any day. Ghosts can be eliminated by taking combo photos and fatal frame shots, which is when you snap a photo of the pesky ghoul while it's in the middle of an attack. The combat is interesting at first, but it becomes monotonous after a while. Many of these enemies are just bullet sponges, and since the game isn't especially difficult, enemy encounters not only lose all of their scare factor, but they just start to feel like hindrances to advancing the story. On top of that, performance issues can at times make the game nearly unplayable. This may be an issue only found on the Switch, but when you're exploring the dark hallways of a confined space, it's not that big of a deal. Though, as soon as you find yourself in an open area, forget it. The frame rate chugs along at a nearly unbearable pace, with it giving you almost no motivation to explore and simply relying on running from point A to point B with some ghost battles while you're on the way. I just couldn't stick with this one. Unless you're an absolute die-hard Fatal Frame fan, I cannot recommend this one. Maybe go back for another playthrough of one of the originals instead. Oh, and one more thing, unless you absolutely need to play this game with motion controls, avoid the Switch version at all costs. Next up is Song of Horror. Originally released in episodic format, Protocol Games have since launched Song of Horror: The Complete Edition on consoles and PC, with the latter getting a physical release. At first glance, it may look like another Resident Evil clone, but this one is more of a slow burn. Think of something more along the lines of the original Alone in the Dark, or even Clock Tower, playing as multiple characters, each with their own unique items and abilities. Your ominous task is to investigate the disappearance of acclaimed author Sebastian Huscher. From the get-go, Song of Horror has very little action. In fact, there's no combat at all. Instead, it plays more like an adventure game, relying on stealth mechanics like hiding and listening through doors. You'll have to use these tactics to avoid the game's two main adversaries, one being the Presence, a mysterious, ghostly black ooze that can strike without warning. And second, pulling a page out of the Book of Eternal Darkness, your character's own mental fortitude. As you're running around trying to solve puzzles and uncover the story, you'll have to be on high alert. Because just one failed encounter with the ghoulish darkness means that your character will be dead for good. Yeah, no need for any herbs or health potions, because you only get one shot per character. If a character dies, it will not only affect the story, but you'll have to start from the beginning of the level as a new player, while still keeping your items and your progress. This is a pretty cool concept that adds some actual weight to your decisions. Since you can't just heal or reload your save, you really have to think twice about reaching your hand into some disgusting bathroom fixture. At its best, the game can be genuinely creepy. The sound design is excellent, and it has plenty of in-your-face jump scares, along with a few subtle blink and you'll miss it spooks that I found to be a nice touch. However, the main issue for me is that it's just a bit too slow-paced for my liking. Some of the puzzles still leave you with little to no direction. Like this section here where you have to track down scarecrows. There's no indication of where to go. You just have to backtrack through every room that you've already explored. On a technical level, the game does look good. It has some great lighting and it generally performs well, with the exception of this damn staircase that I kept getting stuck on with each and every character. Is Song of Horror a bad game? No, not at all. It's just not a great one either. If you're looking for a slow-paced horror adventure, this one might be worth checking out. Just make sure you have the patience for it, and try not to go in with the expectation of a traditional survival horror experience. So that's all I have for today. If I had to choose just one, I would definitely go with Tormented Souls. But anyway, what do you think? Have you played through any of these games, or are there any other survival horror games that I should check out? I mean, it looks like we're gonna have a pretty big survival horror renaissance coming up soon, with some really interesting Silent Hill rumors churning around, and the Resident Evil 4 remake. But anyway, if you like the thing, hit the like, as it does really help the channel grow. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. You know, maybe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.